Welcome to the Bird Podcast. I'm Shobha Narayan. For a beginning birder like myself, bird identification offers a lot of pleasure and a sense of accomplishment. And many bird species, famously the warblers, are very hard to identify. First of all, they are hard to see, and then they are hard to identify. In that context, the bird of this week, the Hupu, offers a lot of pleasure, gives a lot of bang for the buck because it's a very distinctive bird. What does the Hupu look like? Well, some people say that it has tiger colors and coloration, and it's shaped like a pickaxe. So it has tiger stripes, black and white stripes, and tiger colors, and it's shaped like a pickaxe. It also has this beautiful crest on the head, which is perhaps why in Kannada they call it Chandra Mukuta, which means Chandra means moon, Mukuta means on the head, the crown. The Hupu also occupies a variety of habitats. It basically needs two things. It's very adaptable, unlike, say, the great Indian bustard. So it occupies grasslands, savannas, forests, deserts. So it has a distribution pretty much all over the world, except Australia and the far north. All the Hupus were lumped into one species, Upupa epops, but now they've been separated into the Eurasian Hupu, the African Hupu, and the Madagascar Hupu. And in terms of habitat and ecology, the Hupu eats insects mostly, but it can also eat fruits. It can catch small reptiles, but it flies and catches swarming insects. But mostly it walks on the ground and it eats insects that farmers hate. So locusts, it eats cicadas, beetles, bugs, flies. And as I'm listing out these insect names, I'm thinking, wow, each of these is a whole universe, and I haven't even explored that. But the way it eats insect is, of course, flying, but mostly it sort of walks very regally on the ground in grasslands and digs its long beak into the ground, and the beak is strong because it pulls out insects by a process that they call gaping, which is basically dig the beak into the soil and then separate the beak inside the ground. So you can imagine the strength that is needed to pull out the insects. So, and as far as breeding goes, the Hupu needs trees. It's a cavity breeder, so it needs trees and it makes holes and breeds inside. So those are what it needs, and hence, and because it's adaptable and it eats a variety of insects which are found everywhere, you can see Hupus at high altitudes and low altitudes. You can see it around the tropics and the northern and southern hemisphere. How does it breed? Well, it's monogamous. The female incubates the eggs, and they're in a clutch. There are about 4 to 7 eggs, or even as much as 12 eggs. And interestingly, birds in the northern latitudes lay more eggs than in the southern latitudes. Birds at higher elevation lay more eggs than lower elevation. And I was looking into why this is so. But then you go into the rabbit hole of clutch size, and that's a whole another universe. So there was this British ornithologist called David Lack who said a bird's clutch size is very highly suited to how many fledglings can come out of it. So it depends on season, it depends on availability of food, and this changes year on year. So let's do a whole episode on clutch size. But for now, let's just say the Hupu lays 4 to 7 eggs, or as much as 12 eggs. And that it's a monogamous bird, and it is female incubation. Well, the male comes and feeds it. And they all fight with each other, and because they have these long beaks, you have these aerial battles, and they peck at each other. They're very aggressive birds, and sometimes they even they blind the other bird. So there's that. So that's as far as ecology, a little bit about breeding. Now, why is a Hupu so prominent in many ancient cultures, ranging from ancient Greece to ancient Egypt, where the Hupu bird is drawn on the tombs? And it also features in religion. So for example, in the Quran, the Hupu is listed as one of the birds against which King Solomon had a grouse against. And he said, I will punish this bird because it has not shown up to my assembly. And there's in fact a passage that says, why is the Hupu not present? And the story behind it after that is quite charming. So the Hupu says, I was not present because I went to Saba, which is Yemen, where the Queen of Sheba as she's now called, the Queen of Saba has a nice throne. She has a lot of followers. It's a great country. And except they're all sun worshippers. So King Solomon, the reason I was not present at your assembly, says the Hupu, was because I was at Saba and I did some spy work, and I find that she's a good woman for you, and you can reform her by teaching her the Quran and the worship. So that's what it says in the Quran. And in the Bible, the Hupu is one of the many birds, not many, about a dozen birds are listed. They are actually called unclean birds that should not be eaten. And the Hupu, along with bats, owls, cormorants, and a few other birds are listed. So this served actually as a conservation purpose, because the Bible said don't eat them, people didn't eat them. So the Hupu is one of them. But one of the most charming episodes in culture is linked to a poet called Hattar of Nishampur. The Hupu also looms large in culture, in poetry. For example, there is a poem by Attar of Nishampur called the Confluence of Birds, or the Conference of Birds, sorry. And in that, all the birds come to choose a leader, and the Hupu is the wisest of them all. And so they go to the Hupu and ask who is the leader, and the Hupu points them to the Simurg, which is a different story altogether. Lots of cultures believe the Hupus are thieves. In Scandinavia, they believe that if they sight the Hupu, war will come. So the Hupu, along with owls, have all these foreboding about omens, so there's that. In a lot of the Balkan states, Chechnya, etc., the Hupu looms large in the imagination. I was looking at the Hupu in Hinduism, but there isn't much about that. The last thing I want to say about the Hupu is that 2022, the Hupu is the bird of the year for Germany, and it's the national bird of Israel. So when you go out, keep an eye open for this bright, regal, tiger stripes, tiger colors, pickaxe-shaped bird that eats insects and is very culturally resonant in many countries. Bird Podcast is produced by Ullas Anand and Ecology. I'm Shobha Narayan. Thank you for listening, or thank you for watching.